The machines were beeping in rhythm with my dying heart when she walked in. Jessica didn't knock. She never did. "Oh, for God's sake, Linda, you're still lying there?" I watched her storm past the nurse's station like a hurricane in Louboutins, her designer purse swinging from her shoulder, diamond rings catching the harsh fluorescent lights. Behind her, my son Daniel shuffled in like a ghost, his eyes already on the floor. He wouldn't look at me. He hadn't really looked at me in 5 years. Not since the wedding. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to us?" Jessica's voice was sharp enough to cut through the morphine fog. She threw her purse onto the chair beside my bed, Louis Vuitton, the one I knew cost more than my monthly medication. "We had plans, Linda, plans. The Bahamas, 2 weeks, already paid for." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. The IV tube in my arm pulled when I shifted, and I winced. "Don't even start with the dramatics." She crossed her arms, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against her elbow. "You've been sick for months now. At some point, you need to get up and do something instead of lying here making everyone feel sorry for you." Nurse Sarah, the kind one who always brought me extra pudding, froze in the doorway. Her clipboard clattered against her hip. I saw her mouth open, then close again. Even she didn't know what to say to that. "Jessica." Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. "No, Daniel. I'm done tiptoeing around this." She turned to face him, and I saw it the way he flinched, like a dog that had been kicked too many times. "Your mother has been milking this for attention since the day she got diagnosed. Every time we plan something, suddenly she has an emergency. Every holiday, every vacation, every moment we try to have for ourselves." "That's enough." My voice came out stronger than I expected. Jessica whipped around, her eyes narrow. "Excuse me?" I pulled myself up on the pillows, ignoring the way the room spun. The heart monitor beside me beeped faster. Sarah took a step closer, her hand reaching for the call button, but I shook my head. "I needed to do this myself." I said, "That's enough." I looked past Jessica to my son. "Daniel, do you want to tell her, or should I?" His face went pale. "Mom, you don't have to." "Tell me what?" Jessica's laugh was bitter. "What else could there possibly be? More tests? Another round of treatment that we have to pay for?" "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer." I said it slowly, clearly, so there could be no confusion. "The doctor told me 15 minutes before you walked in. I have 4 months, maybe 6 if I'm lucky." The room went silent. Even the machines seemed to hold their breath. "What?" Jessica's voice was small now, childlike. "Stage 4, I repeated. I watched her face cycle through confusion, then understanding, then something that looked almost like horror. "That means terminal, Jessica. That means there's no more treatment, no more fighting. That means I'm dying, and your vacation to the Bahamas is the least of anyone's concerns right now." Nurse Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Daniel finally looked up. His eyes were red. He'd known. Of course he'd known. I'd called him from the doctor's office, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. He'd listened in silence, then said he'd be there soon, and hung up. That was 3 hours ago. And when he finally showed up, he brought her. I didn't." Jessica's voice cracked. Her hand went to her throat, fingers trembling against her pearl necklace, the one my mother gave her at the rehearsal dinner. "Why didn't you tell me?" "You didn't ask." I leaned back against the pillows, exhausted. "You walked in here and started screaming at me before I could get a word in, just like you always do. That's not fair." "Fair?" My laugh was hollow. "You just called me dramatic. You accused me of faking being sick so I could ruin your vacation. You told me to get up and do something." I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of her. "What exactly would you like me to do, Jessica? Die faster so you can make your flight?" "Mom, please," Daniel's voice broke. But I wasn't done. "I have been lying in this bed trying to figure out how to tell my only son that I'm not going to see him turn 40, that I'm not going to meet my grandchildren, if you ever decide to have them. That every single day I have left is precious and fleeting and terrifying." My voice was shaking now. "And you walked in here worried about your vacation." Jessica's face had gone from red to white to a sickly gray. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I'm so sorry, I didn't. You never do. I turned my head away from her. You never think about anyone but yourself. The heart monitor was going crazy now. Sarah moved between us, her hands gentle on my shoulder. Mrs. Chen, you need to calm down. Your blood pressure. I'm fine. You're not fine. She shot a glare at Jessica that could have melted steel. And I think it's time for visitors to leave. No. Jessica's voice was desperate. Please, I didn't mean I didn't know. Get out. Daniel's voice cut through the room like a knife. We all turned to look at him. He was standing now, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. His jaw was tight, his eyes blazing with something I hadn't seen in years. Anger. Daniel. Jessica reached for him. I said, get out. He stepped away from her touch. Now. But Now, Jessica. She stared at him for a long moment, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face, mascara leaving black tracks down her cheeks. Then she grabbed her purse and ran. The door slammed behind her so hard the IV bag swayed. And then it was just us, me and my son, and the machines, and the weight of everything unsaid hanging in the air like smoke. Daniel stood frozen by the door, his hand still on the handle. He was looking at me, really looking at me, for the first time in 5 years. Danny, I whispered, using the name I hadn't called him since he was small. His chin trembled. I held out my hand, the one without the IV, and waited. 1 second, 2, 3, the longest moment of my life. And then I saw it, his hand moving, reaching, coming toward me. But his phone buzzed in his pocket before he could take that final step, and when he pulled it out, I watched his entire body go rigid as he read the screen. Daniel's phone lit up like a firework in his hand. He stared at the screen, his face completely blank, and I knew what it said before he even opened it. Go, I said quickly, my voice cracking. It's okay. Go after her. He didn't move. Danny, she's your wife. She's upset. You should. Stop. His voice was flat, empty. Just stop, Mom. He shoved the phone back in his pocket without responding to whatever message had just come through. His hand was shaking. The room felt too small suddenly, too quiet except for the beeping of the machines and the sound of both of us breathing. I don't want you to go, I whispered. But I also don't want to be the reason your marriage. My marriage. He laughed, but there was no humor in it, just bitterness. Yeah, let's talk about my marriage. He finally moved not toward the door, but toward me. He grabbed the chair Jessica's purse had been on, dragged it across the floor with a screech that made Nurse Sarah peek in nervously, and sat down so hard I thought the plastic might crack. Then he did something that made my heart stop. He took my hand. His fingers wrapped around mine, warm and strong and shaking, and I felt the IV bruises on my skin press against his palm. I looked down at our hands, mine so small and frail, purple and yellow from all the needle marks, his so solid and real. When was the last time he'd held my hand? I couldn't remember. Tell me everything, he said quietly. Everything the doctor said, all of it. Danny. Please, Mom. I need to hear it from you. Not through the phone while I'm sitting in traffic trying not to crash the car. Not while she's in my ear asking when we'll be done. I need, his voice broke, I need you to tell me the truth. So I did. I told him about the scan results, the tumors that had spread, the way Dr. Patel had pulled up the images on his computer screen and showed me the white spots that looked like stars, but meant death. I told him about the pain medication, the hospice care they were recommending, the conversation about whether I wanted to die at home or in a facility. I told him I'd chosen home, because I wasn't ready to give up my garden yet. He listened without interrupting. His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, gentle, rhythmic, the way I used to do for him when he was scared as a child. 4 months, he repeated when I finished. His voice was hollow. Maybe 6. If I'm lucky. I tried to smile. Could be less, could be more. They don't really know. And you were going to handle this alone. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. I didn't want to burden. Burden me? He looked up sharply, and I saw tears streaming down his face. Mom, you're dying, and you thought telling me about it would be a burden? You have your own life now. Your wife, your career. My wife who just screamed at my dying mother about a vacation. His jaw clenched. That wife? I didn't know what to say to that. The sunset was starting through the window, orange and pink and gold, painting the sterile hospital room in warm light. It made Daniel's tears look like honey on his cheeks. I'm so sorry, he whispered, for not being here, for not calling enough, for not visiting, for bringing her today when I knew. He stopped, his throat working. I knew she'd be awful. I knew it. And I still brought her because I thought maybe if she saw you like this, she'd finally understand why I can't just forget about you. She wants you to forget about me? He laughed bitterly. She wants me to forget about everyone. My friends from college, my coworkers who want to grab beers after work. You. He squeezed my hand tighter. Especially you. Why? Because you're the only person who remembers who I used to be. The words hung in the air between us. Outside the room, I could hear the hospital sounds, nurses laughing at the station, a phone ringing, a gurney squeaking past. But in here, it was just us and the truth. I see him sometimes, I said softly. That boy you used to be, the one who wanted to be a marine biologist, who played guitar and wrote terrible poetry, who laughed so loud the neighbors complained. That kid's been gone a long time. No, I shook my head. He's just been buried. There's a difference. Daniel opened his mouth to respond, but his phone started vibrating again. This time it didn't stop. Buzz, buzz, buzz. It rattled against the bedside table where he'd set it down, the screen lighting up over and over. I could see the notifications stacking up, text after text after text. His jaw clenched. His knuckles went white where they gripped my hand. Answer it, I said gently. She's worried. She's not worried. She's angry. But he reached for the phone anyway. The moment he looked at the screen, his entire body went rigid. What? I asked. What is it? He didn't answer, just stared at the phone like it was a snake that had bitten him. Danny, what did she say? Slowly, so slowly it seemed to take years, he turned the phone around so I could see the screen. The message was in all caps. Angry, desperate. If you don't come home right now, don't bother coming home at all. Choose. Below it, another message. Me or her. Decide. And another. I'm not going to keep competing with a dead woman. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I'm not dead yet, I whispered. She doesn't care. Daniel's voice was hollow. He set the phone face down on the table, but we could still hear it buzzing. She's been like this for months. Every time I mention you, every time I want to visit, every time I even bring up my childhood, she acts like you're already gone and I'm just too stupid to move on. Then maybe you should go home. Talk to her. Work this out. No. Danny? No. He stood up suddenly, still holding my hand, and I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years. Fire. I've spent 5 years choosing her. 5 years making myself smaller so she'd be happy. 5 years pretending I don't miss my mom, my friends, my life. His voice was rising now, and she just screamed at my dying mother about a vacation. The phone buzzed again, and again, and again. Daniel picked it up, and I watched his face as he read whatever new message had just come through. Then, very calmly, he turned off the phone completely. The room went silent. What did it say? I asked. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw my son, my Danny, the boy I'd raised, the man I thought I'd lost. It said I had 5 minutes to decide, or she's packing her bags. He sat back down and took both my hands in his. So I'm deciding. Danny, you can't just... Mom, he squeezed my hands gently. I just did. Wait. My voice stopped him before he could say anything else. Before you make any decisions you can't take back, there's something you need to see. Daniel frowned. Mom, I don't need to see anything. I just watched her. Please. I reached for my phone on the bedside table, my hands shaking. I wasn't going to show you this, ever. But if you're really choosing, you need to know the truth. What truth? I unlocked my phone, The password was his birthday. It always had been, and opened my photos. Scrolled past the pictures of my garden, the sunset from last week, the selfie Nurse Sarah had taken with me when I'd finally smiled. Found the folder I'd labeled insurance papers. It wasn't insurance papers. I did something I'm not proud of. I said quietly, "A few months ago, you left your laptop here when you visited. You were in such a hurry to leave she'd called 3 times during dinner that you forgot it." Daniel's face went pale. "Mom, what did you—" "You were still logged into your messages. On the laptop." I pulled up the first screenshot. My hands were trembling so hard I almost dropped the phone. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But a message popped up from her while I was trying to find your number to tell you about the laptop, and I trailed off. I couldn't say it. So I just handed him the phone. He stared at the screen, his face unreadable. I watched his eyes move across the words, the conversation between his wife and her best friend from college. The messages were from 2 months ago. "Jessica, oh my God, I cannot wait for this to be over." Friend, "Still bad?" Jessica, "She's been dying for 6 months now. How long does this take? I've been planning this Europe trip since forever and Daniel keeps saying we can't leave her." Friend, "That sucks. But at least when she's gone, you guys can sell that house, right? Didn't you say it's worth like $800K? Jessica, try 1.2 million. Waterfront property. We're selling it the second we can, and I'm booking first class to Paris." "Keep scrolling," I whispered. He did. More messages, different days, same theme. "Jessica," his mom called again, 3rd time this week. I swear she does it just to remind him she exists. Friend, "Why doesn't he just put her in a home?" Jessica, "Because he's a mama's boy. Honestly, I don't know why I thought marrying a guy for stability would be worth this much drama." Friend, "Girl, you married him because he has a trust fund and a sick mom who won't last forever. Don't act like you didn't know what you were doing." Jessica, you're right. Just a few more months and then it's all ours. I can deal with anything for $1.2 million. Daniel made a sound strangled. Animal and I reached for him, but he pulled away. "There's more," I said softly. "I don't want to see more." "You need to." He scrolled, and scrolled, and scrolled. Months of messages, all of them the same, complaining about me, joking about my death, planning what they'd do with their money once I was gone. But the worst one, the one that made me save all of these in the first place, was from 3 weeks ago. "Jessica, doctor says she's stage 4 now. Danny's devastated, obviously, but honestly, best news I've heard all month. They're saying 4 to 6 months tops. We could be in Europe by Christmas.com. Friend, Jessica, oh my God, you can't say that. Jessica, why not? It's not like she can hear me. And you know what? I've earned this. 5 years of playing the perfect daughter-in-law. 5 years of pretending to care about her stupid garden and her boring stories. I've put in my time. Daniel's hands were shaking so hard the phone screen blurred. "She said that," he whispered. "She actually said that. Danny, she was happy. When the doctor told us you were stage 4, she was happy." A tear fell from his face onto the hospital blanket. Then another, then another. Dark spots spreading across the pale fabric like ink in water. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I shouldn't have kept this from you. I just didn't want to be that mother-in-law who ruins her son's marriage. I thought maybe she'd change. Maybe she'd realize." "How long have you known?" His voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. "Since February." "February?" He looked up at me, his eyes red and raw. "Mom, that was 8 months ago. You've been sitting on this for 8 months?" "I didn't know what to do." My voice cracked. "You seemed happy. Or at least, I thought you did. And I was so sick, and I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe I was misreading everything. She's waiting for you to die so she can sell your house." Daniel's voice was hollow. "Dead. She married me for stability. For money. She's been counting down the days until you're gone." The heart monitor beside me started beeping faster. I could feel my pulse racing, could feel the panic rising in my chest. Nurse Sarah peeked through the door, saw us sitting there in the orange sunset light, with tears streaming down both our faces, and quietly backed out. She knew. She understood. This was a sacred moment, a breaking moment. "I knew," Daniel whispered suddenly. I froze. "What?" "I knew." He was crying harder now, not quiet tears, but the kind of sobbing that shakes your whole body. Not the specifics, not the messages. But I knew she didn't really love me. I knew she was just waiting for this. Then why? Because I didn't think I deserved better, the words exploded out of him. Because she was beautiful and successful and she chose me, and I thought that was the best I could do. Because Dad spent my whole childhood telling me I was too sensitive, too soft, too much, and by the time I met her, I'd already convinced myself that being tolerated was the same as being loved. He dropped his head into his hands, shoulders shaking. I reached for him with my IV-bruised hand and touched his hair, still soft, still my boy. "Oh, Danny," I whispered. "That's not love. That's not even close." "I know." His voice was muffled against his palms. "I know that now. But for 5 years I told myself it was enough. That I was being dramatic. That marriage was just hard and everyone feels lonely and—" He looked up at me, his face destroyed. "Mom, I've been so lonely." "I know, baby, I know. She made me stop playing guitar. Did you know that? Said it was childish. Said I needed to focus on my career instead of wasting time on hobbies. I noticed you stopped bringing it to visits. She made me cut off all my friends from college. Said they were bad influences. Said they were keeping me from growing up. I noticed that too. She monitors my phone, checks my location, gets angry if I don't text back within 5 minutes. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. I thought that was normal. I thought that's what wives did. No, honey, that's what controllers do." He stared at the phone in his hand, my phone, with all the evidence of his wife's cruelty glowing on the screen. Then he stood up. I'd never seen that look on his face before. Not since he was 16 and finally stood up to his father after years of being told he wasn't good enough. It was determination. Pure and fierce and terrifying. "I'm going home," he said. "Danny, wait. I'm going home, and I'm going to end this, tonight, right now." He leaned down and kissed my forehead, his tears wet against my skin. "I'll be back before visiting hours end. I promise. You don't have to do this today. You can wait. You can think." "Mom," he took both my hands in his, squeezed gently. "When you're gone, what do you want me to remember most about you?" The question hit me like a truck. I opened my mouth, closed it, tried to find words. "I want you to remember," I said slowly, "that I never let anyone make me small, even now, even dying." He smiled, sad and broken and beautiful. "Then I need you to watch me be big, just this once." And before I could respond, before I could tell him to be careful or to wait or to think about this, he was gone. The door swung shut behind him, and I was left alone with the machines and the sunset and the terrible, wonderful knowledge that my son was finally about to fight for himself. The room felt too quiet after Daniel left. I sat there in the fading sunset light, staring at the empty chair where he'd been sitting, and I could still feel the warmth of his hands on mine. Nurse Sarah came in 20 minutes later with my evening medication. "Your son okay?" she asked gently, checking my IV. "I don't know." I swallowed the pills she handed me. "I hope so." "That girl he's married to." She shook her head. "I've seen a lot of families come through here. A lot of ugly moments. But what she said to you today?" She met my eyes. "That was cruel. Deliberately cruel. She didn't know I was dying." "She didn't ask." Sarah adjusted my pillow, her touch kind. "There's a difference between not knowing and not caring enough to find out." After she left, I lay there watching the sky turn from orange to purple to black. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. My body ached in ways the morphine couldn't quite touch anymore. And I thought about everything I should have said to Daniel years ago. I should have told him the first time I noticed how she spoke to him, like he was a child who couldn't be trusted to order his own meal at a restaurant. I should have said something when she forgot to invite me to Thanksgiving 3 years running. I should have fought harder when I watched my bright, funny, guitar-playing son disappear into someone else's idea of who he should be. But I'd stayed silent. Because I didn't want to be that mother-in-law, the interfering one, the controlling one, the one who couldn't let go. And now I was dying, and my son was married to a woman who was counting down the days until she could sell my house and fly to Paris. My phone sat on the bedside table, dark and silent. I picked it up and scrolled through my photos. Found the ones I wanted: Daniel at 8 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up the fish he'd caught on our camping trip. Daniel at 16 with his first guitar, hair too long, smile shy. Daniel at his college graduation, proud and hopeful and alive. When did he stop looking like that? When did the light go out? I knew the answer. I'd known it for 5 years. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. The door opened suddenly, and I jumped. Daniel stood in the doorway, breathing hard like he'd run the whole way. His hair was messy, his shirt untucked, and there was something different about him. His shoulders were back, his jaw was set. He looked like a man who'd just survived a war. "You're back," I said, shocked. "It's only been 2 hours." He walked in and sat down in the same chair, and I saw his hands were shaking. I told her everything, showed her the screenshots, watched her try to explain, to justify, to make it sound like I was overreacting. "Danny." Then I told her I wanted a divorce. The words hung in the air like smoke. "You what?" I told her I wanted a divorce. Tonight, right now, that I was done. His voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. "She laughed at me, Mom. She actually laughed. Said I'd never go through with it. Said I needed her too much." "What did you say?" He smiled, small and sad and real. "I said she was wrong, that I needed my mom more, and that I'd wasted 5 years of my life on someone who saw me as a paycheck with a dying mother attached." He pulled out his phone. "Then I took a photo of something I should have done years ago, and I sent it to you." "What photo?" "Check your messages." My hands were shaking as I picked up my phone, opened the text thread with Daniel's name at the top. One new message. One attachment. I clicked on it. The photo loaded slowly. Hospital Wi-Fi was terrible, and when it finally appeared on my screen, I couldn't breathe. It was Daniel standing in front of our old family home, the house where I'd raised him, the house with the garden I'd spent 30 years building, the house that had been in our family since before he was born. He was holding a sign, handwritten in thick black marker on white poster board. Not for sale. Behind him, through the front window, I could see movement, someone packing, throwing things into boxes, moving frantically. She'd already called a realtor. Daniel said quietly, "Did you know that? This afternoon, while I was at the hospital with you. She called a realtor and scheduled a walkthrough for Monday morning." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I came home and she was measuring rooms, making notes, talking about staging and market value. His voice cracked. "My childhood home, and she was treating it like an investment property." "The house isn't even yours yet," I whispered. "It's still mine." "I know." I told her that. She said it didn't matter, that once you were gone, we'd have power of attorney, and we could do whatever we wanted. He looked at me with fierce, bright eyes. "So I called my lawyer, right there in the living room while she watched, and I told him to draw up papers adding my name to the deed. Danny, with conditions, that the house can never be sold without your explicit written consent while you're alive, and after you're gone, it can never be sold or transferred to anyone but me. Not to a spouse, not to anyone." His voice was strong now. "Sure. That house is yours, Mom. Your garden, your memories. And when you're gone, it'll be mine, but it will never be hers." Tears were streaming down my face. "What did she say?" "She threw her wedding ring at me." He laughed hollow and broken. "Literally threw it, hit me right in the chest. Said if I didn't choose her over a dead woman, she was leaving. And so I helped her pack." The words were simple, devastating, perfect. "She's really leaving? Her sister's picking her up in an hour. She'll stay there until we figure out the divorce." He reached over and took my hand, the one with all the 4 bruises. "Mom, I should have done this years ago. I should have listened to you, to myself, to everyone who tried to warn me. I never warned you. You didn't have to. I saw it in your eyes every time she cut me off mid-sentence, every time she made a dig about my job or my hobbies or my family. He squeezed my hand gently. I was just too scared to be alone. And now? He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Now I'd rather be alone than be with someone who's waiting for my mother to die. We sat there in the dark hospital room, holding hands, and I felt something shift, something healing and terrible and necessary. I'm proud of you, I whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long. Better late than never. He laughed, and it sounded almost real. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Another photo. This one showed boxes stacked by the front door. Suitcases, bags, a pile of belongings that clearly didn't belong to Daniel. The caption read, "She's taking everything that was hers. I'm keeping everything that was mine, starting with my self-respect." I looked up at my son, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't seen in 5 years. Hope. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now?" He settled back in the chair, his hand still holding mine. "Now I'm going to take leave from work. I'm going to spend every single day I have left with you. We're going to sit in your garden. I'm going to bring my guitar, the one I bought, to replace the one she made me sell, and we're going to make up for lost time. You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do." His voice was fierce. "Because you're right, Mom. Life's too short to settle for crumbs, and I've been starving for years." The heart monitor beeped steadily beside us. Outside, the night shift was starting, nurses laughing, phones ringing, the sounds of a hospital that never sleeps. But in our room it was quiet and still and perfect. "When I'm gone," I said softly, "I want you to remember this moment. Not the cancer, not the pain, not the ending." I squeezed his hand. "Remember the moment you chose yourself. Remember that you're worth fighting for." Daniel's eyes filled with tears, but he was smiling. "I will, Mom. I promise." And for the first time in months, maybe years, I believed him. I mean terrible, like a cat being strangled, like nails on a chalkboard mixed with a dying car engine. "What on earth?" I sat up in bed, my bed at home now, not the hospital, and saw Daniel sitting in the corner of my bedroom with a guitar that looked like it had been through a war. "Sorry," he said sheepishly, adjusting the strings. "I'm out of practice. It's been 5 years since I've—" "Keep playing." I settled back against my pillows, smiling despite the morphine fog. "I don't care if it sounds like garbage. Keep playing." So he did. And slowly, painfully, the notes started to come together. Started to sound like music instead of noise. Started to sound like my son. "When did you get that?" I asked. "Yesterday. Found it at a pawn shop downtown." He strummed a chord, still rough, but better. "It's not as nice as the one I had, but it'll do until I can afford something better." "The one she made you sell?" His jaw tightened. "Yeah, that one." He'd been staying at the house, our house, my house, the one with the garden I'd planted 30 years ago, for the past 3 days, sleeping in his old bedroom, making coffee in the morning and bringing it to me in bed, sitting with me while I took my medication, while I dozed off and on, while the world slowly faded at the edges. He'd taken a leave of absence from work. 3 months, maybe more if he needed it. To be with my mom, he'd told his boss, while I still can. Jessica had moved out completely. Her sister had shown up with a U-Haul, and they'd packed everything in 6 hours: clothes, shoes, books, that expensive coffee maker I'd bought them for Christmas 2 years ago and never saw them use. The divorce papers were already filed. "She's asking for half of everything," Daniel had told me 2 days ago, his voice flat. "The house, the savings, even my retirement account." "Will she get it?" "Not the house. The lawyer says because it's in your name and I'm the only one on the deed, she has no claim." He'd smiled grimly. "Everything else? Maybe. I don't care anymore. She can have the money. I just want her gone." Now he sat in my bedroom, playing guitar, and I watched the morning light filter through the curtains and paint him gold. "I talked to Mom's friends yesterday," he said. "The ones from your book club. They want to come visit. Tell them yes." And I called Tommy, from college. Remember him? The one who always made you laugh until you couldn't breathe? That's him. Daniel smiled, real and bright. We're getting dinner next week. He said he's missed me, that he tried to stay in touch, but he trailed off. But she wouldn't let you. Yeah. He picked at the blanket. I've got a lot of relationships to rebuild, a lot of apologies to make. They'll understand. I hope so. Over the next few weeks, I watched my son come back to life. He reconnected with old friends who came to visit, sitting in my garden, drinking iced tea, laughing about old times. He started cooking again, making the recipes I'd taught him when he was young. He played guitar every day, getting better and better, until the music actually sounded like music. And he talked. God, he talked. About everything. About his marriage and how it had slowly suffocated him. About his job and how he'd been going through the motions for years. About his dreams, the ones he'd buried so deep he'd almost forgotten they existed. I wanted to teach, he told me one afternoon while we sat in the garden. Did you know that? Before I met her, I was thinking about getting my teaching certificate. Music education. You'd be good at that. She said it was a waste, that I'd never make enough money, that I needed to be practical. He pulled at the grass. So I took the corporate job. The one with the salary and the benefits and the soul-crushing meetings that never end. It's not too late to change. I'm 34, Mom. Exactly. You're 34, not 84. You have time. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw hope flickering in his eyes. When you're gone, he said softly, I'm going to do it. Apply for the program. Become a teacher. Live the life I should have been living all along. Good. I reached over and took his hand. That's good, baby. The weeks blurred together after that. Good days and bad days and days where I couldn't get out of bed. Days where the morphine made everything fuzzy and strange. Days where I forgot what year it was, where Daniel was, why everything hurt. But he was always there. Every single day. Reading to me when I couldn't focus enough to read myself. Bringing me soup when I could manage to eat. Holding my hand through the worst of the pain. And playing guitar. Always playing guitar. One evening, I don't remember which one, they all started blending together. He brought in a woman I'd never met before. Mom, he said gently, this is Nurse Rachel. She's going to help us from now on. Make sure you're comfortable. Hospice, he'd called hospice. Which meant we were close to the end. Hi, sweetheart, Rachel said, her voice kind. She had warm brown eyes and gentle hands. I'm just going to check a few things, okay? I nodded, too tired to speak. Daniel stood by the window while she worked, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. When she finished, she touched his shoulder and whispered something I couldn't quite hear. He nodded, wiped his eyes. After she left, he came and sat beside me. How long? I asked. She says maybe a week, maybe less. His voice broke. Maybe more if you're stubborn. I'm always stubborn. He laughed, wet and choked. Yeah, you are. We sat in silence for a while. The sun was setting outside my window, painting the garden in shades of orange and gold. My garden. The one I'd spent 3 decades building. The roses I'd planted when Daniel was born. The hydrangeas from my mother's funeral. The wildflowers I'd scattered last spring when I still had the strength to kneel. It's beautiful, I whispered. The garden? Everything. All of it. Even this. I gestured weakly at myself, frail and dying and fading. Even the ending. Mom. I mean it, Danny. I'm not scared anymore. I got to see you free. I got to watch you choose yourself. That's all I wanted. He broke then. Completely. Buried his face against my shoulder and sobbed like a child. I ran my fingers through his hair, so soft, just like when he was little, and hummed the song we'd been singing. You are my sunshine. My only sunshine. 3 days later, I woke up and couldn't remember where I was. The room was dim. Someone was holding my hand. Danny? My voice was barely a whisper. I'm here, Mom. I'm right here. I tried to focus. Saw his face older now. When did he get so old? Hovering above mine. The guitar, I mumbled. Play the guitar. Okay, I will. I heard music. soft and sweet and far away. Felt his hand in mine, warm, strong, safe. And I thought, this is enough. This is everything. The last thing I heard before I slipped away was his voice, singing, "Please don't take my sunshine away." 6 months later, Daniel stood at my grave on a Sunday morning, coffee in one hand, his phone in the other. The headstone was simple, just my name and dates and a single line. She taught him to be brave. He pulled up his messages and scrolled to my old number, the one the phone company had probably reassigned by now, the one that didn't matter because he wasn't really texting me, he was texting himself. "Hey Mom, it's been 6 months. I know you're not reading these, but I'm going to keep sending them anyway. I got accepted into the teaching program. Start in the fall. Music education, just like I told you I would. The divorce is final. She tried to fight for the house one last time, but the judge threw it out. Said it was never hers to begin with. You should have seen her face. I met someone. Her name is Sarah. She's a teacher too, 2nd grade. She has this laugh that makes me feel like I'm human again. We're taking it slow, but Mom, she's kind, actually kind, the real kind, not the pretend kind. I played guitar at an open mic night last week. First time in 6 years. I was terrified, but I thought about you and I did it anyway. The garden looks beautiful. I've been taking care of it. The roses bloomed last month, the ones you planted when I was born. They're perfect. I miss you every single day, but I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm free, just like you wanted. Thank you for fighting for me, even when you were dying, especially when you were dying. I love you, Mom. Your sunshine, Danny." He pressed send and stood there in the morning light, knowing the message would bounce back or go to a stranger or disappear into the void. It didn't matter. She'd heard him when it counted. And that was enough.